Hi, YouTube. I'm Brick Smith, and welcome to another episode of Forever Sorting with Kevin A. Hinkle. This is episode 9, or the special episode, or the one that the Brick Smith tried to let get away. Last week, or the week before, or 3 weeks ago, or a month ago.
Memory.
I didn't hear you.
Sometime in your distant memory.
Right. Kevin was telling a story about college, and we had crossovered into Lego, and I stopped him because I knew we had already recorded that story. Come to find out, one of our dedicated Pink Bucket Nation, Forever Sorting fanboys, Brickbender Underworld, decided that we had not heard it.
Incorrect. It was like false
statement. Watched them all, seen them from the beginning to the end. Never, ever, ever. So before we get into the story, Kevin, where can folks find you?
Thank you. Hello, everybody, again. I am Kevin, joined with my awesome co-host, Julian, a.k.a. Bricksmith.
This guy.
And that is the other guy on the other side of this. But thank you guys for continuing to watch, having an interest in this show. If you want to follow me, I go by Mr. Kevin Hinkle on all social media platforms. I also have a website, kevinahinkle.com. If you have an interest in just following my artwork, which does include Lego builds, that is Mr. Hinkle Draws on every social platform. And last but certainly not least, I produce a comic for Lego fans called Bricks in the Middle. And if you have an interest in following that, that is BITM Comics on social media and bricksinthemiddle.com. So thanks again for being here with us.
That's it. Yes. Welcome. So just so because Kevin cannot stop sorting.
Forever.
Yeah, he can't. Sorting. I'll go ahead. Well, Kevin works on that till he gets, I can tell you where we're at in the So Kevin is going to art school in college, in Colorado, and college, and he decided that the school decided to take him on a field trip. So he got his permission slip signed, and he got on the bus, and then they took him to a magical place. So Kevin, if you can divulge us with the magical place, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Wonderbar.
Absolutely, yes. And thank you for setting the stage.
Hey, somebody had to do it.
Someone's got to do it, right? So yeah, as I've mentioned before, I went to the Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design, which is in Lakewood, Colorado, a suburb of Denver, which I just went and visited 2 weeks ago. I had a nice walk down memory lane as I was there working at an event.
And they're like, Kevin, who?
I mean, pretty much. It was kind of interesting because, of course, I had to make a pit stop to walk by my campus. And it is interesting when you're visiting a school you graduated 10 years ago. There's like, oh, it's great to see you again. Who was your department chair? And I was like, oh, Dan Seeley. And they're like, we don't know who that is. And I'm like, awesome. And they go, how about some of your teachers? And I just started listing names. And they're like, we don't know who that is. We don't know who that is. And I'm like, was I even here?
No, you weren't.
Go here. So out of all of my teachers, they only still have one that was there. And unfortunately, she was at a doctor's appointment that day. So no teachers. I had no professors that were there at the moment. So, but that is an aside. So when I was going there, when I was attending the school as a student, they didn't have a major that was focused in game design or game art. It was definitely an interest. Students were mentioning that they had an interest in it. So one of the professors who was teaching classes about like graphics and like just in general 3D graphics and stuff like that, he kind of took it on to do what he could to kind of dabble into the video game world for the students that had an interest in it without a full curriculum dedicated to it.
Well, so, that was 10 years ago. So that was 2008.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of schools that were dedicating themselves to video game art?
I don't think so. I mean, I think some of the major art schools probably had started to experiment with it, but not that I knew.
Gotcha.
So it was, probably common to not have a total dedicated major to it.
Do they now?
Oh yeah, I think almost every art school now has a dedicated game art major. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of interesting. I mean, there were other majors too that I noticed at my recent trip that were not in existence when I went there. So like my school now has fashion design, and they didn't have fashion design when I was.
Fancy.
I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't think, I know they offered photography classes, but I don't think there was a photography major when I went. But I noticed that was definitely a total course, major there now. So, so this professor who was kind of doing his best to expose the students to different fields like game development, he had reached out and established a connection with an owner of a local game developer by the name of NetDevil. NetDevil doesn't exist. There is no such game company as NetDevil. There was then. So he had informed us in the class, hey, we're going to be going on a bunch of different trips throughout the course of the year to expose you guys to different companies and industries. And we did. This one was definitely the most memorable visit out of all of them. I also, before I dive too much in this, I also remember one of the other trips we went on. We went to a studio that was developing 3D technology, like 3D movies. I think, like, if I can recall, the correct term is like stereographic imaging. But it was, I remember being in this guy's studio, and he had like a globe of the world, like kind of floating in the middle of the room, and you had to put on the glasses, and it was kind of like Tony Stark era, like Avengers stuff. And I thought he was crazy, and we all thought he was crazy, but he said, I'm telling you right now, 3D is going to be huge in another couple years. He's like, every movie will be in 3D. Every game system will be in 3D. Everyone will be pushing 3D. And I was like, 3D, like Back to the Future with the blue and the red, like, come on. Like, that was like, it had its time. And sure enough, every film is see it in real 3D, and all the gaming systems were all 3D. I was like, this guy knew exactly what he was talking about.
He did, because I heard a similar statement from another source about the same time you're talking about, and I was like, you're crazy. Never happened.
That already had its time.
Right.
But yeah, so that was, I mean, I remember that stuck in my head from that time when he was so adamant that that's where things were going. And yeah, definitely.
But okay.
Yeah, it definitely had its time. I think it's starting to fizzle a little bit, maybe.
I don't know. The PlayStation and the kids with the games and the glasses and the phone.
Oh yeah, like the Oculus and yeah.
They get a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs on that. I don't know. It's faded in the sense of the movies, I think, but I think we're still gonna, we're still video gaming is where it's gonna be.
For sure.
Rick James will tell you a story.
Yeah. So, so we were going to this game studio called NetDevil in Louisville, Colorado. A little bit out there, I think it was like a 40-minute drive or hour drive away from where we were. We took the bus. As far as I remember, we actually just took the city bus, like just city transit. I think we had to split the group up into two because it was large. Well, no, it was a regular size.
The regular bus.
City bus.
City bus.
Yeah, and the more I think about it, it definitely was, because our school had an agreement with the Denver Transit Authority that the students got free bus rides with a student ID, and so he had just found the correct bus routes, and we did have to do transits and all that, like regular stuff, which in reflection was like, that was a little weird, but we did it. I mean, we took one bus, got off, transferred to another bus, and did the whole thing for an hour trip away. But we did it. So we get to
Did you get bus sick?
I'm pretty sure I did. Pretty confident I didn't. There was no There was none of that, but I'm pretty sure I was a little crazy. So if those of you don't know, I do get motion sickness. That's a real thing. I've had it ever since I was a little kid. That's why I don't fare too well sitting in the back seat of cars, or especially like buses and stuff. Like if I'm in the back, it's not going to be good. But if I'm driving, no problem at all. It's kind of a half and half shot when I'm on a plane. It's like if it's a rough flight, it's not going to be good. But if I can't, I mean, if it's just the whole takeoff and landing, that's fine. I'll get over it. But usually they're pretty calm. So,
and I hate to interject. I sweat on planes. I don't ever stop sweating.
Yeah.
Just wanted to tell you.
Okay. You just wanted the record to state.
Just wanted to share.
Yeah. I kind of go back and forth. Like I will typically pack a sweater for the airport because I feel like I'm going to get cold in an airport and or on a plane. And I think half the times I go, I do get cold. I need to pull out a sweater. The other half of the time, I'm like just hot. I'm dying. And I'm like, man, it's really...
You should never sit next to me then on a plane because you will just I radiate heat. It will be uncomfortable. It will not, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the space heater in aisle 6 would be happy to provide services if you are chilly. I think on my recent trip to Denver, I was cold on the flight over and I was dying on the flight back. I was just like hot. I don't know. So yeah, we took this bus ride. We went out to this studio called Net Devil. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't do any research into it because I wasn't really into game art anyway. I mean, there was some kids in the class that really were. Yeah. But I was like, okay, cool. It's a trip. We're going to go see what this is all about. And our professor met us outside, like in the, gathered us all up outside the studio and said, okay, just so you know, this studio has just signed on with a major toy company. One of the biggest projects they've ever done. So there's a lot of stuff you guys can't talk about in here. So they've specifically asked us to have you guys sign NDAs for your trip. And I was like, this is kind of neat. So we actually go into the building and there's this little lobby area. It's not huge. It's got a couch or whatever, a little table, and a little reception area. And most of the walls are pretty dark, black or dark brown. So it's not, it's muted tones. And they've got like some big, like standees you'd see at like a GameStop or whatever for some of their old games that they've developed. I think probably their most well-known was a game called Auto Assault, which I had never heard of before, but it's like a Mad Max style gaming, driving shooting game. So they had like some standees from it, and promotional artwork and things like that. So we're in this main room, and then the guy that comes out, which happens to be the owner or the I think there was two brothers, owner of this company, and he greets us all, welcomes us there, and said, "We're going to go into this other like conference room so that we can pass out the NDAs and kind of set the stage and get your signatures before we go into the main building." And again, to recap people, this is probably 2006 or 2007. I am working for Lego at the Lego store in Colorado. I'm pretty sure this is when I'm a supervisor. I'm not an assistant manager, although that's where we're at in the main story.
Yay!
Cool. That was a bad story last time. But
that'll rip your heart out.
Well, yeah. And so this is a little bit of a step back, but that's okay.
Yeah, I had to do that because I shut him up.
That's okay. It's okay. It's a fun story though. And I'm in school. I'm in college studying animation. So, my two worlds, my college, my educational world and my professional world haven't really intersected at all, aside from me inhabiting both ecosystems. I brought Lego into the stop motion classes because I thought that was fun to do. But other than that, there really is there's no bridge between them.
Right.
So we're in this little conference room and he's handing out all the NDAs to all of us students. And there's a lot of us in that room. I mean, we're surrounding the table. Some are sitting on the floor. Some are standing around the circumference of the room. And he's explaining that, a little bit about their history, when did they start? Why did they start? I don't even remember what he said, but just background information about the company. And he talked a little bit about auto assault because that was their big thing that they had done. And he's like, but we're really excited now because we've got quite possibly the largest contract we've ever signed. And he kept saying, major toy company, major toy company, major. That's what he kept saying. And I'm like, and I'm sitting there like, I default to one answer. I'm like, well, it's not Lego. I mean, that's the thing I keep thinking about.
But back then it was a major toy company, but it wasn't
like in the top 3.
Yeah.
I think maybe it was top 5.
Wow.
Maybe.
Wow.
I don't know. Yeah. So we all signed them. We all passed them back up.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, all right, so if you guys are ready, follow me. So we go kind of back into that lobby area because the conference room was connected to that lobby area. But there's this giant, like these 2 doors that go into the actual studio. And they were off, to the left. And he goes, all right, let's go. So we're all like cattle, corralling around this man. And we're going in there and the doors open up. And I felt like I was in Legoland. Welcome to the Icebox. So crossover event. Oh wait, we got to get that shout out every time. So it was such a bizarre experience because the doors open, and this is a game development studio, so a creative space, on the walls, what you would imagine in your head is probably what was there. There's a bike over there, some skateboards, hanging, and beanbag chairs in these different rooms, and people are on their their computer screens developing stuff like what you would imagine a game development studio looks like. However, Lego everywhere, absolutely every single nook and cranny.
Wow.
And so I'm like, what? And so there's like Lego sets. Everybody's desk, like built Lego sets on display. Lego sets built hanging from with fishing wire from the ceiling. There are just bins and bins and bins and bins of bricks everywhere. There's a massive mosaic, a brick-built mosaic of the Net Devil logo that's kind of greeting people. And I'm just like trying to understand why. And everybody in the classroom, including my teacher, all turn around and stare at me. All of them at the same time. And they're like, Kevin, what is this? Because people knew I worked at the Lego store. They knew I'm a Lego employee. Of course, there's the misconception that I'm tied into marketing at a global corporate.
Right.
And I was like, I have no clue what we're looking at. I'm totally lost. I have no idea. So, of course, now that we've signed the NDAs, now that we're inside the room, and of course, all of this stuff is totally moot now. As the story continues, you'll see why it doesn't matter anymore. But, we go in and he's explaining to everybody, to all of us, that they've signed a contract with the Lego Group to produce a massive multiplayer online role-playing game.
Fortnite.
What's that?
Fortnite?
You got it. If it was Fortnite, they would still be around. But an MMORPG, similar to the likes of World of Warcraft. What's another example of something like that? I don't know. Minecraft, I guess. A little bit like Minecraft.
Yeah, I guess.
But, something in that vein. And so we're walking around, and he's explaining what each person is doing, what they're doing at their desks. I'm gone. Like I'm not listening really to what he's saying because I'm so enamored at what every inch of this studio is covered in Lego. Like it really is. Like I can't like fully explain to you. Every single nook and cranny had Lego in it. And there was a lot of original stuff too. Like I remember walking by a conference desk and the whole table was filled with like this elaborate, massive pirate ship. It's something like, like a 6-foot long pirate ship that was all brick built. And I'm like, what is going on here? I remember we got to one of the guys' desk who was showing us some of the mechanics of a character, a minifigure, picking up something and throwing it and having it smash into Lego pieces. And that never really came to pass into the actual video game that this was made. But I remember seeing it, and I'm like, that is so awesome. So
Yeah.
he was sitting on his laptop, and he had the giant monitor at his screen, you know, and the rolly chair, and soda here, and Lego all over his desk, and he was showing us that, you know, it was just a minifigure with like a black environment, like there was nothing really there, but I mean, he was fully rendered.
Mhm.
Walk around, he could pick up a thing, like pick up a spaceship, and he would just click his mouse and just hurl it, and it would smash into all the pieces. And I'm like, that's a brilliant. And he was just like, here, try it. And he like let different students like just pick up things and throw them, and they were smashing apart. It was so fun. Um, and there was another guy who went over to a different desk, and his thing was he was working on like a combat system, so how the characters would fight each other.
Okay.
And so he had like this weird misty blue ghost like figure that had wings and had like a hammer, and you were the minifigure fighting this guy with like a sword. And I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but he looks cool. He was like floating around, and you could destroy him, and he would blow apart into pieces, and it was just really cool. I was like, I don't know what any of this is, but this is pretty neat. And then as you know, we keep walking around. I mean, he showed us everything. I mean, we looked at like their little cafeteria area, where I mean, they had a fully stocked, like they had fridges filled with soda, with you know, juices, with water. They had all the junk food snacks you can imagine, and then healthy fruits and stuff like that. But I mean, just fully stocked kitchenette area for all the game folks.
Wow.
We also walked by my favorite part was the concept artist. So these are the people that their job is to just draw different ideas and then share the ideas with the rest of the team and see if they can make it a reality. And concept artists are important in a lot of different fields. But I was fascinated. So, I mean, we get to these two guys, and they're the concept artists. They both have like drafting desks, you know, where they're slightly elevated.
I used to have one of those when I was inking.
Yeah, see, I mean, it's cool. It's cool, you know, and you can adjust the height. And they were just surrounded with their artwork, just like on the walls, pinned up, hanging from some wires. They're just surrounded, and it was all Lego artwork. So it was like Lego environments, like brick built trees, and different like again, they used this weird smoky bad guy, like a ghostly figure, like blue purpley smoke. There was like a pirate guy like that. There was like a gorilla guy like that. There was, I mean, it's like there's a concept that's flowing through these. I don't know what it is. And then they had like vehicles. They had minifigs, and of course, it's all different styles. Some of them really rough. Some of them are more polished. And I was like, man, I would love to do this. This is what I would love to do, is like concept artists for this. And I remember I asked, I'm like, are you guys hiring a concept artist? And like, not really. But it was so cool. And so we keep walking, and eventually we get by we get by the model builders. So they're actual real model builders that their job is to create the things that are going to appear in this game in real life bricks for a couple different reasons. To make sure that it's real, because that was important, is that anything built in game should be built in real life. And also things that could be built in life, could it be built in the game? And so it kind of works both ways. You know, if some game developer said, we need a car, make us a car so we can put it in the game, or maybe, you know, the other way around. So I was a little bit surprised because I knew one of the two people there. So two gentlemen. One of them was very Danish. So I did not have any clue who he was, but he had come over from Denmark. He was a Lego Group employee. And he was in this Net Devil studio as a model, and he was working on the Death Star. I remember this. He was building the Death Star 2, the one that's like the big, you know, destroyed model, not the playset. He was building that. I remember that. And I think, if I recall, he said, well, we're building this because I want to see if the game could handle building a model this big in the or something like that. I was like, I'm like, sure you are. And then the other guy I recognized, and I'm like, I know you. And this was Dwayne. And Dwayne is a member of Cowlug. So he was a local AFOL that would shop in the store. I would see him often. I had zero idea that he was, I didn't even know what he did as a profession. but he's here building things for this game. And he was like, "Oh, yes, hello." I was like, we have things to discuss next time you're in the store. And so, I mean, he was working on, I think he was working on some pets. So, like small brick built animal companions for the main character in the game. And I still don't know what this game is. I'm lost. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's being made. There's a game being made here. It involves Lego, but I still don't know what it is.
So, let me cut you off and interrupt you for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you are aware of Kevin Hinkle loves playing video games. And I feel like I know Kevin well enough to know that if there was something going down the pipe, that is, it would somehow be in his wheelhouse on the video games end of it. Oh,
probably.
So for him not to know was pretty crazy.
It was kind of a big deal. Kind of a big deal. And this, like I said, this is like 2007, I think.
Mm-hmm.
This game that I saw them making here was not released until 2010.
I think so.
Think so. So I mean, this was years before this thing came out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So like I said, we got things to discuss next time. Is what I told Dwayne. And then kind of like when I was there, this other guy approaches the two model builders as we're kind of like leaving. And it's Jim Folds. And I've mentioned Jim Folds, I believe, once or twice on this show. Yeah, and Jim was the guy who later on in my Lego career was my hiring manager, my boss, my mentor when I joined the community department, which is where a lot of people know me from, is my community role. But
I think it was Colorado store where I met you.
Maybe. But he was also in my perspective, Jim was an AFL. He was an AFL who shopped in my store. He was local. He bought Lego products. He was knowledgeable, and that was it. I didn't know what he did as a profession. He just did something. And so I'm like, why are you here? And I'm pretty confident he just laughed because that's what he liked to do. He laughed, and he's like, well, we'll have things to discuss next time I'm in the store, won't we? And I'm like, yeah, I guess we will. And so I didn't really at that time, because we were like in mid-walk to the next part, get a chance to really say, like, what are you doing here? He was just there. He was walking around. He was walking from wherever he was sitting to where Dwayne was. And I couldn't, like, so we talked later. I was like, I don't know what he's doing here, but he's here too. So we kept going. We eventually got to their brick room. And if anyone has seen some of those documentaries on Legoland, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about because they look identical. It's these long racks that just go down as far as the eye can see. And they've got these bins that are very, very, very similar to these. Very similar. And they're just from the ceiling, almost from the ceiling to the floor, and they just go down as far as you can see. And there was like 15 aisles of these. I mean, this was massive. And every Lego element produced was in these. And the game guy, who was like the game, company owner, couldn't really speak to it. So one of the other people that was there kind of in the racks, they kind of explained it. They said, yeah, the Lego group set us up with all this so that we can make sure we're using the elements in the game. And if we need to reference it, we can. And they said, this is the largest collection of Lego elements outside of Legoland, California.
Wow.
And I go, and nobody knows it's here. Like, it is a total secret bunker of Lego elements in the middle of Colorado. I mean, they had more than the model shop in Infield had. That's for sure. And I can tell you now, in retrospect, and I've been to both, yes, they had more than Infield did. I mean, this was a massive area that was just dedicated to pieces. And, of course, people were walking down the aisles and grabbing parts and putting them in their hand or whatever. They're working on projects. And he said, oh, yeah, we're encouraged to play and have fun. And if you want to build something, grab parts from the racks. I think the only place that I've seen that's comparable to that size is actually in Dillon, is the actual product development. And they do the same thing where the designers walk down and grab the parts they need. I mean, so any Lego fan, if you can imagine, every Lego piece ever produced, in bins, each part was in a bin this size. So even if it's like 1x1 plates of one color, the whole bin's filled with it. And just, I mean, walls of it, just, going all the way down. And go ahead.
Oh no, I'm taken aback by it because it sounds exciting.
I mean, it's crazy. And all of us kids were all, going down the aisles and looking at stuff. I mean, kids, adults, we're like looking at everything. And it's incredible. And it's still, we're in a game development studio. So it's a cool environment already. Like I said, there are game developers skateboarding from one meeting to the other. And there's beanbag chairs in every room and, soda and junk food. And then there's Lego everywhere. Absolutely. This whole office is a Lego office. And there's stuff hanging from the ceilings, and it's incredible. And yeah, I mean, we keep walking around, we see some other things, nothing that I can really remember as being super notable, but just a coolness. I was overwhelmed. The sets everywhere were old sets, classic sets, new sets, rare sets. I mean, just sets everywhere. And then, of course, original things that people had built and just stuck all over the place. So we got to the end. We got to the end of the tour. We kind of had circled around the whole circumference of the place. At the very end of it, I will say at the very, very end of it, there was a small little nook that were for people not dedicated to the Lego game. And it was like not many. It was like 6 employees. I think the company had about 60 people, I think. There was about 60 people working in there. And there was a small group of like 5 they were working on some kind of space game. It was like a space, flying around spaceships, blasting asteroids or something. And he's like, yeah, this is our team that's not working on the Lego game. I was like, wow, okay. We weren't there very much. And so, we circled back around into the conference room. The guy took questions. If you have any questions, ask us. And when we wrapped up and we left, and I was totally, I loved it. It was amazing. I thought it was just cool. It was a cool place to see, and I liked seeing what all those people were doing. The concept art is really stuck in my head. I was like, man, I'd love to do that. Everyone had a good time. But more importantly, I was like, what is happening in Louisville, Colorado that I do not know about that is Lego related? And why has no one told me?
Right.
So
my concern.
Exactly. Obviously, we were under NDA. We can't talk about, what we saw. But the next time I went to work, I said, well, heck, an NDA to not talk about Lego. I could probably talk to Lego people about Lego. I would guess. So I took a chance and I talked to my boss and I said, hey, so interesting story. And I told her about everything. I told her what we did in school, where we went, what we saw. I was like, what is that? And she's like, I have no idea. Like, can we find out? She goes, yeah, we should. I'll send a message to the district manager. And so then she did. She sent an email to this, and the district manager's like, what are you talking about? He didn't know either about this thing. But then he was able to talk to someone who did know. And that is when we finally got the official confirmation that this studio was producing Lego Universe, the game that released in 2009, 2010, that was positioned to be the destroyer of World of Warcraft, the most all-inclusive multiplayer online game in history. Illusions of grandeur. But I'm like, Lego Universe. Okay.
Yeah. So it was sent out to destroy. Lego was planning it to destroy
World of Warcraft.
How'd that work out for them?
Not so good. So yeah, I mean, after that, it was kind of interesting because then I knew this game was being made in my backyard. Some of the trips started making sense, like when corporate people would be in Colorado for no apparent reason. It's like, well, you're definitely not coming to see the Lego outlet store in Colorado Mills. That's for sure.
Ain't we doing great in this outlet over here?
Yeah, that's the first opportunity I ever had to meet Jorn V, which was the CEO, not the CEO currently,
right,
but kind of the most famous CEO of Lego. He did it for many, many years. he came to visit the game development team, and he had, of course, an entourage of executives. And while they were in Colorado to visit with the game, they stopped by the store to see, how we were doing. But I mean, it was so weird. Like my worlds had all kind of collided.
That's crazy. That is crazy how that happened to you.
It was so bizarre. Obviously, after that fact, I talked to Dwayne, and Dwayne had educated me that I think he was an IT programmer or a computer programmer of some kind, but he's a very skilled builder. And he had been hired to be a model builder for Lego Universe by Jim. And Jim was a community manager. So he was a Net Devil employee, not a Lego Group employee. He was a Net Devil employee that was hired to be a community manager because the Lego Group wanted AFL involvement in the creation of the game.
Good deal.
So they said, let's hire a person who can manage that. And Jim was also a programmer, and he was in the area. No, I don't think he was. I think he was in Pennsylvania at the time. He used to work for Lockheed Martin.
Okay.
Smart guy doing that. And they said, well, we want a community person. And somehow Jim got that role. I mean, he wanted it. He had wanted it for a long time. So Jim had moved to Colorado to be the community manager for Net Devil to manage that. And he had recommended Dwayne for the model building role because he's a local AFL that thought he could, and he did great at it. So yeah, Jim had educated me on what his role on this was. And then, it all started to really kind of come together. It was cool. I was like, wow, all this stuff is coming together, and it's weird and it's neat, but it's kind of.
Yeah, I can't fathom that. You just be sitting there doing your own art thing, and then the place in which you work.
It's just like, what?
Just minding your own business.
It's just great. It's great. And yeah, I mean, from that moment on, I mean, everything was a lot more obvious.
Yeah,
I should say. So more
blinders off.
Yeah, I mean, more information slowly started trickling out over the years. Lego's making a giant game. It's called Lego Universe. Massive multiplayer online game. Like I said, there was more attention from the company in Colorado because that's where the game was. And there's been a couple documentaries that have been out on different things about Lego. And Lego Universe has been mentioned numerous times.
Sure.
Because Lego Universe was, unless something has changed, the single biggest investment the company made ever. Yeah. So I think the documentary I last watched said they had put $40 million into this game.
Wow.
There's a lot of money. Hey, then the game came out. No, we'll talk about it later. I mean, that was in 2009.
We'll talk about it in 2009. We're getting close.
We're getting there.
Yeah. Well, we can do it like this.
Yeah. So that, that was a little kind of cool but important anecdote that was in the timeline, the Kevin timeline.
The antidote. Yeah, it was little.
But yeah, so that story happened. That was a real thing that occurred. As we get a little bit later in the story, right before I move out of Colorado, me had an interview in that building to try to work as an artist for that game.
Oh boy.
That's the tale. That is our tale for this, the one that almost got away.
This is the story that almost got away. Yeah. Kevin has decided to stop telling me stories between recordings. That way we can
ensure this doesn't happen again.
Correct, because it might. I think we could cut it there. And Kevin, thank you for show. I guess folks are going to have to wait till next week to find out what happens now over at the Colorado Mills as you're the assistant manager.
Right.
If you don't know what we're talking about, go watch last week's and cry a little bit at the end, and then watch this week's, and then check out next week's to find out what happens to Kevin next. Same Kevin time, same Kevin channel.
The Kevin Chronicles.
There you go. Why did you even call it forever?
I'm sorry.
God. I'm Rick Smith.
I'm Kevin.
That's Kevin right there. He's waving. Thanks for joining us. Forever Sorting with Kevin and Hinkle. Episode 9 or not. I don't know. Is it going to be episode 9?
No, special episode.
Special episode.
Special episode.
Remember, you gotta
love those bricks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.